The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for centuries, their influence stretching across countless worlds. They saw themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy, believing that no species could challenge their dominance. Their laws were absolute, their punishments swift, and their power unquestioned. When humanity was discovered, the Council dismissed them as insignificant, a primitive race from an unremarkable planet. They saw no need to fear Earth, for humanity had neither the technology nor the military strength to stand against them. But that was a mistake. For years, the Council imposed heavy restrictions on Earth, limiting their advancements and forcing them into submission. Trade embargoes, military threats, and political manipulation were used to keep humanity weak. However, the Council failed to see the one thing that made humans different from every other race they had encountered: their unyielding spirit. When humanity finally struck back, it was not with words or diplomacy. It was with fire and fury that shook the very foundation of the galaxy. It began with whispers. Reports of missing Council warships, supply routes being disrupted, and outposts mysteriously destroyed. At first, the Council dismissed these incidents as mere accidents or the work of pirates. But soon, the pattern became clear. Someone was targeting them, striking with precision and vanishing without a trace. When a fully armed Council battleship, one of the most advanced in their fleet, was obliterated near the outer rim, the Council could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was retaliating. The news sent shockwaves through the Council chambers, where the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to discuss the growing threat. They could not comprehend how such a young species had managed to challenge them. It was impossible. The Council had spies on Earth, monitoring their technological progress. Humans were still supposed to be centuries behind them. And yet, their warships were being torn apart in ways they could not explain. How had the humans managed to close the technological gap so quickly? Where had they acquired such devastating firepower? The Council was desperate for answers, but the more they searched, the more they realized they were dealing with something beyond their understanding. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment in secret for decades. While the Council believed they had Earth under control, humanity had been working in the shadows, developing advanced weapons, hidden bases, and warships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had studied the Council's technology, adapted it, and improved upon it. Humans had turned their planet into a fortress, and now they were ready to unleash their wrath. The first major strike came when a fleet of Council ships attempted to blockade Earth, demanding that humanity surrender their hidden weapons. It was meant to be a show of force, a warning that resistance was futile. But instead, it became the first major battle of the war. As the Council fleet moved into position, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't run. They didn't negotiate. They fought back. Earth's defenses activated, unleashing a barrage of energy weapons and railgun fire that tore through the Council's ships like paper. Stealth fighters, equipped with advanced cloaking technology, slipped through enemy lines, striking at their weak points with devastating accuracy. The battle lasted only a few hours, but by the end of it, the Council's fleet was in ruins. Survivors who managed to escape spoke of a horror they had never seen before. A human fleet that fought with impossible precision, ships that moved faster than they should, and weapons that defied logic. The Council's arrogance had blinded them, and now they were paying the price. Panic spread among the high-ranking officials of the Council. They had expected Earth to be defenseless, yet their fleet had been utterly destroyed. They realized too late that humanity was no longer a species they could control. But the true nightmare came when the humans delivered their message to the entire galaxy. A transmission, broadcasted on every known frequency, played across every world under the Council's rule. The image of a human commander, standing in the ruins of a fallen Council warship, filled the screens. His voice was calm, yet filled with an undeniable intensity. "To the Galactic Council," he began, "you have ruled with fear for too long. You have crushed those who stood against you. You believed yourselves to be untouchable. But today, You learn the truth. Humanity does not kneel. We do not bow. You came to our world expecting submission, but now you face something else. You face the consequences of your arrogance. This is not a warning. This is a declaration. Earth will not be conquered. And if you dare to test us again, we will bring the war to your doorstep. The message ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned. For the first time in history, the Council faced an enemy that did not fear them. The illusion of their invincibility was shattered. Fear gripped the Council members as they realized what had begun. This was not just a rebellion. This was a war, and humanity had fired the first shot. The Council had always believed that no species could stand against them, but they had never encountered humans before. And as they gathered their forces, preparing for what they thought would be a swift retaliation, one thought lingered in their minds, a thought that sent chills through their very being. Had they just made the greatest mistake in galactic history? The Galactic Council had never known fear, until now. The destruction of their fleet by Earth's forces had shaken their confidence, but more than that, it had shattered the illusion of their dominance. For centuries, they had ruled with absolute authority, crushing rebellions before they could begin. No species had ever dared to stand against them and survived. And yet, humanity had done the unthinkable. Not only had they resisted, but they had annihilated an entire blockade fleet, leaving wreckage drifting in the void as a warning to the rest of the galaxy. The Council's pride was wounded, but more than that, their power was at stake. If one race could defy them, others might follow. The Council could not allow that to happen. They had to respond swiftly, with overwhelming force, to remind the galaxy who truly ruled the stars. And so, in a desperate attempt to crush the defiance of Earth, they gathered the largest invasion fleet ever assembled. Thousands of warships, armed with the most advanced weaponry the Council possessed, were mobilized. It was a show of power meant to terrify, to intimidate, and to end the human rebellion before it could spread. But the Council had made a fatal miscalculation. They still believed humanity was weak. They still thought that Earth's victory had been a fluke. And because of that arrogance, they were about to march straight into a nightmare. The invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Sol system, moving in perfect formation, a wall of destruction aimed at Earth. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers and firepower. The Council's admirals had studied the reports from the first battle, and they were convinced that humans had only won because of surprise and luck. This time, there would be no such advantage. The fleet was prepared for any human trickery, their ships reinforced with energy shields that should, in theory, withstand anything Earth could throw at them. Thousands of Council soldiers waited in the carriers, ready to descend upon the planet and wipe out any resistance. The Council's leaders watched from their warships, expecting to see Earth's forces break apart under the might of their fleet. But then, something unexpected happened. There was no immediate response from Earth, no desperate distress signals, no attempt at negotiation, just silence. A heavy, eerie silence that stretched on as the massive fleet moved closer. It was as if humanity was waiting, watching. And then, without warning, the silence was broken, not by words, but by war. The first attack came from nowhere. A hidden defense station, concealed within the asteroid belt, suddenly came to life, unleashing a storm of kinetic projectiles that tore through the outer edges of the fleet. Several Council ships were destroyed in an instant, their shields unable to withstand the sheer force of the impact. Before the admirals could react, Earth's warships emerged from behind the moons of Jupiter, moving with terrifying speed and coordination. Unlike the bulky, heavily armored ships of the Council, these human vessels were sleek, agile, and deadly. They darted through the battlefield, weaving between enemy lines with impossible precision. And their weapons, those were the true horror. The Council had expected plasma cannons, missiles, and energy-based weaponry, like their own. But humanity had gone in a completely different direction. Railguns, magnetic acceleration cannons, and hypervelocity projectiles that moved faster than anything the Council had ever encountered. They sliced through shields, tearing through hulls like paper, leaving burning wreckage in their wake. The invasion fleet had come expecting to dominate. Instead, they were being dismantled piece by piece. Panic spread through the Council's ranks. The admirals barked orders, demanding counterattacks, but the humans were everywhere. Their stealth ships slipped between formations, striking at command vessels and cutting off communications. Electronic warfare systems hacked into the Council's ships, jamming their signals and disrupting their targeting systems. The once mighty fleet was reduced to chaos, ships colliding in confusion, firing blindly into the void. And then came the most terrifying part of all. Humanity did not just fight from a distance. They boarded the enemy ships. Council soldiers, trained to fight from the safety of their warships, suddenly found themselves face to face with human warriors. And it was then that they realized what kind of enemy they were truly facing. Humans fought with a ferocity that defied logic. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. Even when wounded, they kept going, pushing forward with a relentless determination that sent fear through the hearts of their alien foes. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, using their knowledge of close-quarters combat to slaughter entire squads of Council troops before they even knew what was happening. It was not just a battle. It was a massacre. The admirals of the Council, once so confident in their victory, now found themselves facing the grim reality of their failure. Their fleet, the most powerful armada ever assembled, was being annihilated. Their soldiers were dying in droves, unable to match the sheer willpower of humanity, and Earth itself had not even been touched. The planet remained below, watching, as if waiting to see how much destruction the humans could unleash before the Council finally understood their mistake. The realization came too late. The invasion had failed. The Council, for all its power, had underestimated the one thing that made humanity different from every other species they had conquered. It was not their technology. It was not their weapons. It was their refusal to be ruled. Their refusal to accept defeat. Humanity did not fight wars for territory or for resources. They fought for survival. And when backed into a corner, they became something the Council had never encountered before. Something unstoppable. The remnants of the once great invasion fleet turned and fled, their admirals no longer concerned with victory, but only with survival. The humans did not chase them. They let them go, knowing that the message had been sent. The Galactic Council had come with the intent to crush Earth. Instead, they had been humiliated. The galaxy would remember this battle for centuries to come, not as the day Earth was conquered, but as the day humanity stood against the greatest empire in the stars and sent it running in terror. And as the wreckage of the Council's warships drifted through the void, a single transmission was sent from Earth, repeating across every frequency, ensuring that every world would hear it. The same human commander from before, standing amidst the ruins of another fallen enemy vessel, his voice calm but filled with an unshakable certainty. You came to our world with fire and death. You sought to break us, but you have only awakened something far worse. This war is not over. Not until the Council learns what it means to fear. Not until they understand that Earth does not fall. Earth strikes back. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled with absolute power, ensuring that no species could rise against them. But humanity had shattered that illusion. Earth had proven that the Council was not invincible, defeating their mighty invasion fleet and sending them fleeing in disgrace. However, victory had come at a cost. Humanity knew that the Council would not stop. They would return with even greater force, determined to erase the threat that Earth now represented. And so, the leaders of humanity made a desperate decision. If they were to survive, they needed something more than just advanced technology or brilliant strategy. They needed a weapon so powerful that it would make even the Council tremble. Legends spoke of such a weapon, an ancient force hidden in the darkest corners of the galaxy, something so devastating that the Council had forbidden even speaking of it. No one knew if it truly existed, but humanity was willing to find out. A secret mission was launched, sending a team of the most skilled operatives deep into uncharted space. Their mission was simple: find the ancient weapon before the Council did, or die trying. The journey was dangerous, leading them through the abandoned ruins of lost civilizations, across the remains of worlds that had been wiped from history. Every clue they found led to another mystery, another hidden truth buried beneath centuries of fear. The Council had gone to great lengths to erase all records of the weapon, but they had underestimated humanity's determination. After months of searching, the team finally discovered a hidden star system, one that had been deliberately erased from all galactic maps. At its center was a dead planet, its surface cracked and lifeless, as if something had drained the very essence from the world. But beneath the surface, deep within ancient tunnels carved before the rise of the Council, the truth awaited. The weapon was real, and it was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. What they found was not a machine, nor a fleet of powerful warships. It was something older, something beyond the understanding of modern science. The weapon was alive. It was not a construct, but a force, an entity that had once belonged to a civilization far greater than the Council, a civilization that had disappeared long ago, leaving behind only this final remnant of their power. The team could feel its presence, a pulsing energy that seemed to watch them, to study them. It was intelligent, aware, and it was waiting. The records they uncovered told of a time when this entity had been used in war, a war so destructive that entire galaxies had burned. It had no form, no physical structure that could be destroyed. Instead, it was a force of pure destruction, bending space and energy to its will. It could not be stopped by shields or countermeasures. It simply erased its enemies from existence. But there was a reason it had been hidden. The last civilization to use it had vanished, leaving behind nothing but ruined worlds. The records warned that the weapon had a price, one that no species had ever been willing to pay. But humanity had no choice. They activated the weapon. The moment it awoke, the galaxy trembled. The Council, even in their distant homeworlds, felt something shift. A presence older than their empire, something they had feared for generations, had returned. Their sensors detected nothing, no ships, no fleets, yet they knew. Something had been unleashed, and it was coming. Panic spread through the Council as they scrambled to prepare. Every available warship was mobilized, every defense system activated. They had always believed themselves to be the ultimate power in the galaxy, but now, for the first time, they understood what true fear was. And then the attacks began. There were no warnings, no fleet movements, no invasions. Entire Council strongholds simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Planets that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to silence. No debris, no survivors, just emptiness where once there had been life. The weapon did not fight like a conventional force. It did not attack with missiles or energy blasts. It moved through space like a shadow, consuming everything in its path, bending reality itself. The Council's greatest fleets fired upon it, unleashing weapons capable of shattering moons. But their attacks did nothing. Their warships dissolved into dust before their weapons could even reach their target. The ancient weapon was beyond anything they had ever faced, and now it was under humanity's control. Earth's leaders watched as the Council's empire began to collapse, its forces unable to comprehend the horror they faced. But the question remained, was the weapon truly under their control? It had obeyed their commands, yes, but it had also begun to act on its own. Reports came in of Council worlds being erased without human intervention, of entire fleets vanishing before orders were given. The weapon was not just following commands. It was choosing. It was hunting. And the humans who had activated it began to realize the truth. The last civilization that had used this weapon had not been destroyed by their enemies. They had been consumed by the weapon itself. It was not just a tool of war. It was a force of destruction, one that knew no loyalty, no limits. The warnings in the ancient records had been true. This was a weapon that could not be controlled. And now it had awakened once more. Humanity had sought to defend itself, to end the war before it could begin. But in their desperation, they had unleashed something far worse than the Council. And as they watched the ancient weapon continue its path of annihilation, one terrifying question remained. Could they stop it? Or had they just doomed the entire galaxy? The war had reached its final stage. The Galactic Council, once the unchallenged rulers of the stars, now stood on the edge of extinction. Their fleets had been shattered, their armies had been driven back, and their once mighty empire was in ruins. Earth, the defiant world they had tried to subjugate, had become their greatest nightmare. But even as humanity stood victorious, they knew the war was not over. The Council had one last stronghold, a fortress hidden in the depths of space, surrounded by the most powerful defenses ever constructed. If they were to truly end the war, they had to destroy it. And so, with the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders, the final battle began. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a wall of warships that stretched across the void. Each vessel bore the scars of battle, but they had survived. And now they were here to finish what had begun. The Council's last fleet awaited them, a desperate force of remaining warships and defense platforms, their weapons aimed and ready. This was not a battle for territory or power. It was a battle for survival. Missiles and energy blasts streaked across the battlefield, colliding in violent explosions that illuminated the darkness. The Council's ships, though fewer in number, fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. Their warships, massive and heavily armored, unleashed devastating barrages of plasma and kinetic rounds, trying to break through the human fleet. But humanity had learned. They had studied the enemy, adapted to their tactics, and now they moved with deadly precision. Their warships weaved through enemy fire, striking with terrifying accuracy. Railguns tore through Council hulls, and pulse cannons overloaded enemy shields in seconds. Human fighters darted between the larger ships, cutting through defenses and crippling key targets. The battle was not just a fight. It was a storm of destruction. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Kane watched as the enemy forces struggled to hold their line. He knew the Council would not surrender. They had built their empire on dominance, and they would rather die than accept defeat. That was why Earth had come with only one option: total annihilation. The main fleet pushed forward, hammering through the Council's defenses, breaking their formation. Enemy warships fell one by one, their burning wreckage drifting into the void. The defense platforms, once thought to be impenetrable, were systematically dismantled by concentrated bombardments. The Council's fleet had been reduced to half its original strength within minutes, but they still fought on, refusing to retreat. And then, the Council made their final move. A massive warship, larger than anything humanity had ever faced, emerged from the darkness. It was their last command vessel, a mobile fortress equipped with weapons powerful enough to wipe out entire fleets. Its presence alone sent a wave of unease through the human forces. This was the Council's last hope, their final weapon. If they could destroy the human flagship, they believed they could still turn the tide. The monstrous vessel charged its main cannon, a weapon that could tear through even the most advanced defenses. Admiral Kane knew he had only seconds to act. All ships, focus fire on that command vessel. Bring it down before it can fire. The order was given, and the fleet responded instantly. Every available weapon was unleashed, beams of energy and railgun rounds slamming into the enemy warship. Its shields held, absorbing the initial impact, but humanity did not stop. Fighters swarmed around it, striking at weak points, while capital ships pounded its hull with relentless firepower. The command vessel charged its cannon, its energy building to a terrifying level. If it fired, it would take out half the human fleet in one strike. Time was running out. Kane's eyes locked onto a single weak point in the enemy ship's armor. a section near the engine core that had taken damage from earlier skirmishes. It was a risk, but it was the only chance they had. Target the exposed section. All ships, fire everything you have. The fleet obeyed. Missiles, plasma bursts, and railgun rounds converged on a single point, hammering through the weakened armor. The command vessel shuddered, its structure breaking apart. And then, in a blinding explosion, the ship detonated from within, its core rupturing in a chain reaction. The shockwaves spread across the battlefield, sending debris flying in all directions. The Council's last hope had been destroyed. What remained of their fleet fell into disarray. Their coordination shattered. Some tried to flee, but humanity did not allow it. They pursued, cutting down the last remnants of the enemy's forces. Within minutes, it was over. The Council's final stronghold had fallen. As the fires of battle faded, the silence of space returned. The war was over. The Council, the once mighty rulers of the galaxy, had been defeated. Earth had not just survived, it had prevailed. Across the fleet, the news spread. Cheers erupted in every ship, voices filled with relief, with triumph. But as Admiral Kane looked at the battlefield, at the wreckage of ships and the countless lives lost, he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, but now the galaxy would watch them with fear. They were no longer the underdogs. They were now the dominant force, and with that power came responsibility. Would humanity rule as the Council had, with fear and control, or would they forge a new path? That question remained unanswered. But for now, one thing was certain. Earth had won, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The war was over. The Galactic Council, once the unchallenged rulers of the stars, had been utterly destroyed. Their fleets lay in ruins, their mighty fortresses reduced to dust, and their leaders either dead or in hiding. The war that had begun as an attempt to crush humanity had ended with humanity standing victorious. But victory came with a price. The galaxy was in chaos. Without the Council's iron grip, entire civilizations were left leaderless, uncertain of what would come next. Trade routes collapsed, planets fell into lawlessness, and ancient rivalries reignited in the absence of a central authority. The war had not just defeated the Council, it had broken the fragile balance that had kept the galaxy together for centuries. And now the question remained, what would humanity do? Would they take the Council's place, ruling over the galaxy as conquerors, or would they build something new, something better? On Earth, the leaders of humanity gathered in what was once the United Nations, now repurposed as the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from every surviving human colony and allied alien species had come together to decide the future. Some argued that humanity should take control, enforcing peace through strength. Others believed that if they became rulers, they would be no different from the Council they had fought against. The debate raged on. But amidst the uncertainty, one truth was clear. Humanity had changed. They were no longer just another species in the galaxy. They had proven their strength, their resilience. The entire galaxy now looked at them with both awe and fear. Their choices would shape the future of all civilizations. And so, after days of intense discussions, a decision was made. Humanity would not claim the throne of the fallen Council. Instead, they would create something new, a coalition, an alliance of free worlds that would stand together, not under one ruler, but as equals. The message was sent across the galaxy, an open invitation to all species willing to join. Some worlds welcomed the idea, desperate for stability after the chaos of war. Others hesitated, still wary of humanity's newfound power. But as the first planets began to join the coalition, a shift began. The war had shown that the Council's rule had been built on fear, on control. But humanity offered something different: cooperation, unity, and the promise of a future where no species would be forced to kneel before another. The transition was not easy. Pirates and warlords rose in the absence of the Council, seeking to carve out their own empires from the wreckage. Some former Council loyalists refused to accept defeat, launching desperate attacks in a futile attempt to reclaim their lost power. But humanity was prepared. Their fleets, battle-hardened from the war, moved swiftly to crush any threats to the fragile peace. And unlike the Council, they did not rule through oppression. They defended, protected, and ensured that those who joined them would never again live in fear. As the months passed, the coalition grew. Once isolated worlds found themselves thriving under the new system. Trade was restored. Conflicts were resolved through diplomacy rather than war, and for the first time in centuries, species that had lived under the Council's rule began to believe in something greater than just survival. Humanity had not just won a war, they had changed the course of history. But even as peace began to take root, they knew the past would not be forgotten so easily. There were still those who saw humanity as a threat, who whispered that it was only a matter of time before they became the next empire, the next force of tyranny. And perhaps they were right. Power had a way of corrupting even the noblest of intentions. But for now, Earth remained committed to its vision. They had fought for freedom, and they would not become the very thing they had destroyed. On the edge of known space, a lone warship drifted in the darkness, its crew watching the stars. They had fought in the war, had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer. And now, as they looked toward an uncertain future, they knew that humanity's greatest battle was not with weapons or warships, but with itself. The Council was gone. A new era had begun. But what that era would become,